So apparently my parents talk about a lot of heavy stuff on their podcast. Listen at your own discretion. Like, comment, subscribe, and share or whatever. Anyways, welcome to Sobriety.
Welcome back to the show, everybody. Before we get to today's guest, I just want to remind everybody, please make sure you like, subscribe, review, comment, share, everything on the podcast. It is available on every single platform out there.
And to remind everyone, this is Ryan and I'm Jess.
And we're sober as fuck.
You didn't tell everybody who we are. You're just like, hey, welcome back.
Welcome back to it. Here it is.
Yep.
Yes.
You got stuck in your pre-record monologue. You're sitting here talking to yourself for 10 minutes.
I'm going through things, and I'm so proud of you. We just got back from vacation. And the biggest thing, I'm so fucking proud of you. Your suitcase is empty.
Give me a break.
It's empty. It didn't sit there.
That sounds like a backhanded compliment if I've ever heard one. The only reason it's empty is because everything I had was dirty. So I literally
But it's empty. I'm so fucking
It's not
proud of
empty.
you.
I still have shoes in a suitcase. I still have stuff shoved in the front zipper pocket. And the more that you complain about me emptying my suitcase, I'll leave that thing
I emptied the front.
Listen to me.
Had some sandals and stuff in there. Empty.
I will keep that bitch unpacked until our next vacation just to piss you off.
No, you won't. It's
Yeah, I
done.
will.
It's actually
Watch
going
me.
in the garage.
I'll
Done.
I'll throw a bunch of more clothes in it. I'll take clean clothes and just fold them and put them in there.
Yeah,
Consider
love
it done.
Put away. Love it.
Any other smart ass remarks you have for today?
No, just, still trying to get through it. Vacation. We're done. You got to move on. Today's moving on day. I'm here. Suitcase is unpacked and we're doing podcasts.
Are you manic today?
No.
Are you sure?
Yeah. Let's get to our guest. What do you think?
Are you going to tell everybody where we went on vacation before we do that?
We went to Boston. It's fucking
We went to
awesome.
Boston.
To Boston. No worries.
No worries.
That's great.
Apparently, I adapted some weird accent while we were there, and I didn't even realize
You
it.
said that like 4 times, and me and Lily caught you on it. It was just great.
But I didn't do it on purpose. I think it's just because, since I grew up doing theater, it's like I adapt to what people are saying around me because you guys pointed it out multiple times. And I really
it was just that one word, but it was so damn funny when you said it.
I'm not that person. There are people who they're like, oh, I lived in New York for 6 months and now I have an accent or whatever. And it's like, no, you don't. Shut up.
Yeah,
but it was fun. And before we get to the guest, something that I was very pleasantly surprised about is that Lily enjoyed Salem more than anything else.
Mm-hmm. It's a cool town.
I told her, I said, listen, you have all your friends convinced I'm a witch. And now I took you there and you love it.
Runs in the family, apparently.
Okay with that.
There you go.
All right. Now you may proceed to the guest.
Today's guest, his name is Aaron Meade. He reached out to us a couple months ago and read about his story. Absolutely loved it. So I can't wait for him to come on and tell everybody about it. So please welcome to the show, Aaron Meade. What's up, Aaron? How are you, buddy?
What's up, guys? I'm well. I'm actually still giggling. Just congratulations on the suitcase.
Oh, really. Yeah. Well,
it's a big deal, and you don't want to play it down. Take the win. It's awesome.
We've talked about it on previous podcasts because it just sits in the corner for month and a half, and I finally, I guess, griped enough about it and talked about it on the podcast. She found a way to do it. I'm so proud of her.
Listen, no one is harmed in my refusal to unpack. Okay.
Define harm.
That's right.
There's a trick. I'm not going to say I do it, and I hope she doesn't listen to it. But if you come up as soon as you get back and you dump the suitcase out on the bed, there's nothing else to do.
Then it's got to be done.
You know what I do with that?
But you got to act like you didn't know any better. And
I would just scoot everything over to your side of the bed.
That's what it was.
And I would just get in bed.
Get in bed, leave me to do it.
He used to do that when he would do laundry. He would take it and lay it out on the bed. And then when we would get ready to go to bed, it would all still be there. And I would get so pissed that I would literally take the laundry and just put it on his side of the bed. And then I would just go to bed.
Folding laundry within the same day that it comes out of the dryer is a high level of spiritual development.
That's this guy right here.
Not everybody gets there,
That's right.
I will never get there. That's okay.
Well, as much as I love talking about laundry and suitcases, Aaron, I really want to dive into your story and your relationship with alcohol, how it changed. So go ahead and give us a lowdown on everything.
Man, so I always like starting it off like from early life before I ever took a drink, because I believe that a lot of us we're fundamentally different in the way that we operate and react to things, in comparison to people who aren't alcoholic. So, one of the earliest things I can remember about interactions when I was a little kid was anytime I was showing up to a group of other kids or going to hang out with my friends, it felt like I was showing up to a game that everybody else knew the rules to. And I didn't. I couldn't ask about these rules because that would make it weird and prove that I am different. But honestly, I think that's what it is, or at least for me, that's how I see it. It's like I'm different, right? And because I'm different, I'm not safe. And because I'm not safe, I got to go figure some things out to make sure that I feel okay, so that you guys will keep me around, so that I don't end up completely alone. That kind of sums it up for me as far as the disease of alcoholism and addiction. Or like the great TED talk out there, the opposite of addiction's connection. We're born just disconnected. But yeah, so I grew up in St. Louis. Tons of friends growing up, a lot of kids around me, but that thing was always there. And I actually was terrified of doing the wrong thing for most of the time. Around the age of 9, my parents split up. And then right after that, I had been sexually abused by a neighbor and kept that a secret. So like I had this evidence that I'm different. And at the same time, I was freaked out of doing anything wrong, because I would be smitten if that were the case. And then I would spend eternity in hell. And, so, you guys know what I'm talking about, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I mean, dude, I could honestly, here's another great alcoholic trait, is like, left alone as a little kid around that time, if there was nobody else around me and TV wasn't on or anything like that, I could literally sit and ponder the idea of eternity until I worked myself into tears, just trying to like wrap my head around it. Like, and it's that same need to create safety, right? To understand it. 'Cause if I can figure it out, then I can maybe do something about it. And like, even then, I'm a little kid trying to master eternity. So anyway, so I ended up getting drunk for the first time freshman year. Sorry, no, right before my freshman year of high school. And that thing that made me different, the game that everybody else is playing that I don't know the rules to, it was like halftime or something. The game is off. I can talk to people. The dudes that I was afraid of, because this was at my buddy's older brother's bonfire, so the guys that I'm usually freaked out by are cool, and like they seem to think I'm cool too. I don't know what's going on here, and I was just like at peace with myself. I could just be and look outward instead of managing what was going on with me and trying to make that fit into whatever else was going on. And I end up blacking out, woke up in like a puddle of my own vomit on my buddy's back stairs. Got away with that one. Next time was freshman year homecoming. Same thing. The game is off. I fit in. This is cool. Everything's awesome. I don't know why we don't always feel like this. It's amazing. Somehow made it home, woke up in my bed, had vomited there this time. And I, again, because I was too kind of freaked out about like doing anything wrong, getting into any trouble, I didn't really continue to drink too often. I had found my escape through music. I had started joining bands when I was like 12, 13. And that was a place where I could kind of control the show. Like I'm literally on stage, right? So it's cool to be portraying something, and you guys are here to see me, which is even better. And I get to express all of this shit that I'm mad about, right? And it is perfectly acceptable in this format. And I didn't realize that's what I was doing. I just knew that I loved that feeling of being up there. I loved music. I was obsessed with it. And, I sometime as later in high school, I start growing out of that a little bit, start wanting to become cool. I had grown up the fat kid as well. And then around 17 years old, I said, I don't want to be fat anymore. And so I used my obsessive mind to learn every single thing that I possibly could about diet and exercise, and lost like 100 pounds within a 4.5 month span or so.
Wow.
Yeah. And again, that's because people will hear that and they're like, wow, that's incredible. That's inspiring. I'm like, look, sure. Right. But you don't see 16-year-olds doing that.
It shows
good
your
reason.
obsession. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
It's all about the intention and the drive behind it. Yeah.
Right. That is a fear drive, right? That's not inspiration that is making you go, yeah, I just love myself so much that I want to do it's so anyway, I do that, and then all of a sudden, like I look better. I've got more people coming up to me that seem to want to be my friends. And, I get away from music, start going to parties more, start drinking more. And dude, I love drinking. I mean, at that time it worked. It really worked for me. And you know, the whole diet and exercise thing I had learned about what alcohol does to the body, so that actually kept me away from it because I didn't want to undo all this stuff that I had done, you know. Not to mention I was still pretty freaked out about getting in trouble, but I was smart, so it wouldn't happen, right? So at least I'll stay away from it during the week, and then go to parties, because that's ultimately the thing that I wanted more than anything, was just to, well, I wanted to be the person everybody was obsessed with, right? Because that creates the most security, but really just to be accepted, right? So I get to, oh, sorry, I always like mentioning this. There was a point where I would drink like 1 or 2 beers at a party, because that wouldn't completely blow out what I was doing in the gym, and it wouldn't disrupt the metabolic effect too much, right? But I noticed, because I think I only did it twice, but after the first time, I have 1 beer and I'm like, this is fucking horrible. Right. So I'm like, all right, I'll just have my second one. And I'm like looking around and talking to people who had only had like 2 beers. I'm like, how the hell are you doing this? Like, I am so goddamn uncomfortable right now. And I would just go home. So I'm like, this is terrible. How do people, this doesn't make any sense. Why do I feel worse? That's it. That's the craving, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's that, it is that ingrained in us, in a lot of us, I think. Anyway, so I go to college at Mizzou, and all bets were off at that point. Yeah, I'm like, okay, wait, you can drink all the time here, and plus, I'm not legally old enough to drink, but it's socially acceptable for me to drink at any point in the day because I'm in a fraternity and everybody else is. So yeah, let's go. And I mean, that's where, regular blackouts and drinking during the day starts kicking in. By the end of my time at Mizzou, um, there was a summer where I'd stayed up there and stayed at school. I was not in school and didn't really have a job, and had recently discovered a bender. Now, here's the thing. The first time you drink in the morning when you're hungover, it is the most mind-blowing experience, because you feel like shit, and then you have like 2 drinks and you're like, I feel like I'm drunk again, but I'm not drunk, but I feel amazing. Why? Let's just do this all the time, right? I've got nothing else to do, so I'm going to see who wants to go to the pool. And that's when okay, I've done this 5 days in a row now. What the hell's going on? And then, oh God, it's happening again. Starts kicking in. My parents had pulled me out during that summer to go see an alcohol therapist, because they sort of sense what was going on. And the pending DUI that I'd gotten the previous November was starting to show potential repercussions. And I go to this therapist, and this lady knew her stuff. She knew enough about this disease to go, I don't really know if you're an alcoholic. I can't tell you that you are, but you should go check out a meeting. All right, check out a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous, and just don't drink or do drugs for 30 days. See how it goes. So I take her on. The first time I'd stepped into the rooms of AA, I saw the first step and was like, powerless over alcohol. Okay, that's dumb. How am I going to beat something that I'm powerless over? This doesn't make sense. And then I'm like looking around at the people. I don't think they look anything like me. They're not people I would want to be around, or at least that's how I'm perceiving it. And I'm like, and you guys are all coming to these meetings all the time to talk about how you're not drinking. So your life still kind of technically revolves around drinking. I don't know how you guys don't get this, but it's dumb. I'm out. Gave up on AA. Still stay sober for that 30 days. I end up making it, I think, like 61, 62 days because I felt better. Things were getting better. I was like, oh, I can actually potentially finish school. And look, I started working. I have money again. And turns out I'm not freaking out all the time. Once I've dried out, I don't have this crippling anxiety that I thought I did, which was my excuse for drinking some of the time. So I end up at a buddy's house before we're going out one night, and he's like, dude, you could have one Four Loko. And I'm like, dude, I shouldn't have one Four Loko. Yeah, Four Lokos, if you remember them. Just national treasure right there. Yeah. So I'm like, I shouldn't have a Four Loko, dude. I'm going to end up blacking out on pictures of Long Island iced tea if I have a Four Loko. And he's like, no, dude, you could probably just have one. You've been sober for like 60-something days. I'm like, you know what? You're right. And if I have one Four Loko, we should bong it, because that would definitely make it work better than if I just drink it. And plus, it's gross. I don't want to taste it. So I do that and end up blacking out on pictures of Long Island, just like I thought it would. That's how I drink. Like it was always more than I said it was going to be. And it finally got to the point where I stopped saying, I'm not going to do this, because I knew it. And I stopped saying, oh, I'm going to be better next time. It was just, no, I'm going to change my life to where I don't have to be better next time. I got to the point, I'd left Mizzou with a relationship, and I get to a point where she ends up convincing me to stop drinking, and I had gone back into music. At this point, I was a professional DJ and music producer, and that was going better than I could have imagined. And, like I said, I stopped saying I was going to stop doing these things forever, and instead just change what I was doing. And I found this thing where, hey, this is going way better than it possibly should be. And I'm getting paid to get drunk. Like literally. People talk about like, yeah, that's a great job for an alcoholic. Like I've heard other people say, everybody says blah, blah, blah is a great job for an alcoholic. I'm going to argue that being a DJ is one of the best jobs for an alcoholic until you realize you're actually an alcoholic, because it will send you, maybe it still is the best, because it'll send you down so quick that you don't really have a lot of time to hang in. But anyway, this girl makes a good case that I should stop drinking. I stopped drinking for a year, 7 months, and 2 days. Now, along the way, I had found pills and discovered there's this combination of benzos and Adderall and maybe just a little bit of opiates that make me feel a little bit better than I actually did when I was drinking. And nobody knows I'm drunk. I can just do this all the time, and it's sort of normal, right? So I don't drink for that year, 7 months, 2 days. Within the first like 3-4 days, I was taking Xanax every day, because that thing still existed in me. That thing that something is wrong. I don't feel okay. I got to fix it so that I can continue going about life. And, the whole time it's nobody else has to do this. Nobody else has to live like me. Because of that, I get to do this. I get to go on. A bunch of other bad stuff happened after that. I started drinking again after that, year, 7 months, and 2 days after I thought I was going to run out of drugs. I didn't run out of drugs. I thought I was going to run out of drugs. So to make the drugs last longer, I started drinking again, right? And, end up blowing that relationship up. And then there were like 3 big events that really led to me hitting bottom in a place where I said, okay, drinking is the problem. I had gotten into a car wreck and I was going over 100 miles an hour, and I was trying to see how fast a rental car that I was in could go because my Jeep had blown up due to a manufacturer recall. And I end up clipping somebody on the road. They spin out. I go off a 40-foot embankment, roll the car like 12 times, come through upside down, refuse a ride to the hospital. By the grace of God, was not so drunk that the officer could tell. And I refused a ride to the hospital because I could see a Quick Trip from where I was standing, and instead asked him to drop me off at that Quick Trip, which he did, where I finished off a bottle of Jack Daniels, waiting for my dad to pick me up and take me to the hospital.
Jeez.
While the consequences of that are starting to mount, I end up having this accident where I'm jumping off rocks into water with a bunch of friends and basically hit a rock underwater head on.
Oh.
And get helicoptered out of there, get fractured skull. I'm in the hospital for days and days. And then I end up having a grand mal seizure while driving, a few months after that. So, and the wild thing, I think about these things because they let me know at that time that something's keeping me alive. The fact that I survived the accident without any I had broken ribs and a concussion. The cliff jumping thing, I fractured skull, yeah. Broken neck, no. And then the thing with this grand mal seizure, I was to a point where, because of that accident before, I'm looking at up to 15 years in prison, because when you hit somebody going that fast, it's assault, it's a felony, and I have not been able to be responsible for myself and attend hearings and such that would allow me to mount any sort of a defense. And I knew, like, dude, I did this. Like, I can't do anything about that. So if I'm looking at going to jail for 15 years, nothing that I do here matters. Like, none of the money that I save is going to be there. My career, sure as shit, isn't going to be there. My friends aren't going to be there. It's all done. So I need to just fast forward time until this thing happens. So I get up to, like handle a day, if not more. And there was this day where I, tried to not drink because I was going to be out of money if I didn't go return clothes to the mall. And I stopped drinking for like 6-8 hours. Try to drive to the mall, end up having a grand mal seizure behind the wheel, come to, and I'm in the same spot that the accident was happening, that accident happened, but going the opposite direction on the highway. I look over, I see the lights pulling me over because I was driving like 35 miles an hour. And as soon as I get pulled over, I look over and the skid marks from that accident are on the other side of it, right? So it's just another one of those things. It's like, okay, like these things are terrible, but at the same time, there's this thing is happening. And I end up, that shook me up a little bit. But the thing that got me was I had tried to not drink once again because I had this last like big show at a club opening that we'd been putting together forever. And the same thing happens, but this time a petit mal seizure while the show is starting. I end up getting kicked out of my own gig because people didn't know what was happening. And when I got back, that's when it finally started to dawn on me that drinking is the problem. Like, this is the issue. And I said, okay, I'll go to treatment. My parents had been advocating for me to go to treatment at this point for like 6 months, if not longer. I'd been going to an inpatient or an outpatient treatment program that we were basically just paying to lie to. And I finally surrendered. I said, okay, I'll go, because now this last thing that I had left, which was the shows before whatever impending doom that jail was going to bring or prison was going to bring came, that's gone. Right. So I give up. Plus, it makes sense if I get back in shape. If I am going to go to prison, I should probably get in shape. Which was the other wild thought going through my head at the time. So I go. I went to Hazelden, Betty Ford in Naples, Florida for 30 days. I get out and I didn't end up doing all the work. There's this 4-step inventory in the steps that I was not willing to look at. I had secrets from when I was a kid. That shit was going to die with me. There's no way. I stayed dry for 3.5 years at that point, and things got better. I went to meetings. I did not get a sponsor. I didn't work the steps. I wasn't actually in the program. I was dry. Right? And by the end of it, I'm taking Xanax again. I'm taking Kratom all the time to sustain that sense of normalcy. And in 2021, I ended up leaving the job that I had broken up with the girl that I was with. And one day I'm sitting up in our pool we've got this like rooftop pool, and there's a fridge there. And this was when White Claws had gotten first really popular. And I'm the only person up there because it's like a Tuesday. I'm going back into music, and there's, at this point with my career, I'm getting ready to go back into music, and there's not a lot to be done in the middle of the day. So I'm kicking it at the pool by myself, and I'm like, I don't know whose White Claws those are, but I should probably try one because I totally missed out on this thing and people love them. So I drink like the 6 White Claws that were in there, and I'm like, these things are awful. I don't know why people are so hyped up about it, and this isn't working. Like, I don't feel the way that I think I should. Before I know it, I'm at the liquor store again, getting a 5th of vodka, and it's back to the same stuff, and like, here's the insanity. Like, I lived by myself in a 1-bedroom apartment, right? And I would still hide my liquor. Like, I would literally, there's nobody had to hide it from, but I would still do it because I'm like, yeah, it's this, just the denial and this inability to be honest in order to protect myself that I had to cling on to. It kept me doing those things. Now, within 2 weeks of that drink, I end up losing everything, from the apartment to the car to I was going to take over a studio and be head producer there, find the talent, manage the studio. The deal that was going to buy that studio, that fell apart. The car gets hit, all of it, like 2 weeks. It was incredible. Found myself back in my dad's basement and drinking a handle a day. The shame that we try to bury as addicts and alcoholics cannot be understated. The big book of AA calls it, mentions pitiful and incomprehensible demoralization. There is no better way to say it, because it's tough to imagine a pain like that, because you are just in a world of chaos that is created by you, and everybody's mad at you. Like, nobody is happy with you, to the point where you don't even really reach out to people when you need them because you know better at this point. There's nobody left. And I get to this point where I am, I tried to go to detox and didn't give it an effort at all. I just wanted to feel better. A couple months after that, I am starting to develop symptoms of wet brain, or Wernicke-Korsakoff syndrome, and I am all of a sudden present to the fact that I'm desperately lonely. Now, that's something I didn't really experience the same. I was able to cover it up, but it's this point where I'm wanting to reach out to my friends because of this wet brain thing that's going on. I can't remember sometimes how to use my phone or what my friends' names were. And there's other things happening where, like, okay, I don't drink for a little bit, but for some reason my body's still drunk. I'm like falling down. I haven't had anything to drink for 12 hours. Like, what the hell's going on? And I get a glimpse of how I'm going to die if that keeps going. And it's going to be by myself, and it's not going to be fast. And there might not be anybody there. And then I get this lightning bolt moment where all of a sudden I remembered Zoom meetings were a thing. I remembered AA existed on Zoom. It was nowhere in my mind until this very moment. And I go, oh shit, okay. Well, if I can get on a Zoom meeting, then there might be like a guy there that could sponsor me. And if I could ask this person to work with me, then like maybe I won't die. You know, so I get on a meeting, I hear a guy telling a story. He's got like 30 something years of sobriety. He sounds insane, but like he's better now, but he's still a little crazy. This guy was like a paratrooper, had done, I don't know how many tours in Iraq and Afghanistan, and was funny as shit. And I'm like, okay, this is the guy talking. So I guess I got to ask this guy, you know, so I do. And, you know, we end up on the phone for 4 hours that night after, you know, the initial like, hey man, okay, well, are you an alcoholic? I'm like, yeah. He's like, can you stop drinking? I'm like, no. He's like, all right, well, are you powerless over this thing? Is your life unmanageable? I'm like, yeah, for sure. I absolutely. He's like, do you believe something beyond you can help you? I'm like, yes, absolutely. He's like, you willing to turn your will and your life over to care of this thing, whatever it might be? And I'm like, definitely. He's like, all right, you got a notebook? And I'm like, fuck, here it comes. You know, he got me going there. And we stayed on there working that step that I wouldn't touch that previous time, you know, and then we got back on the phone the next day for a few hours and finished that thing out. Then I start working through the rest of these things, and all of a sudden everything starts getting better. Like, I mean, in miraculous time. One of the things that he was really big on, and still is this this practice of taking inventory and meditating. So for people that don't do step work, you know, steps 10, 11, and 12, it's a daily inventory of ourselves, and then improving our conscious contact with our higher power, whatever it may be. And he got me going on this twice a day from day one, right? And my brain started coming back online in a way that I didn't think was possible. You know, I had talked to people that were like, dude, you've had a lot of concussions, man. Some of them have been really bad, and plus with everything that you're doing with drinking, you might just be a little off, you know, forever. It starts reversing itself. The way I feel about myself starts changing dramatically, and I start finding myself capable of doing things without the help of any sort of substance for the first time in my entire life. You know, and the more and more I start to work through this thing, the better and better I feel, the better and better my life starts to get. And something kind of dawns on me at that point of, oh, so the more I can put into this, the more I'm going to get out of it. And if I just go as crazy on this as I can, then it might just give me the same thing back. All right. And that's kind of how I lived ever since. You know, one of the big things that sponsor got through to me on that night, which was, you know, December 3rd of 21, was that, you know, everything that you're doing right now is the result of self-centered fear. All right. So the more and more you can face and be rid of that, the more free you're going to be to live however your higher power wants you to live, you know, and which is ultimately going to end up being what you're inspired to do. Right. And, you know, that's one of the things that has really just driven me to this point. You know, I got really involved with service work. I got really involved in the community and recovery. You know, I found you guys because I've stayed involved, but, you know, my friend Samantha did this show a few months back, and that's somebody that I know through the program that, you know, we end up running a business together for a little bit. Everything that I've got today is a result of my sobriety. There's no question about that, you know, and I would assert that with not only the program, because I'm a big advocate of, you know, if there's outside help that fits, yeah, you should probably get that. But there are so many transformational modalities available today that can take you from dying on the streets to like, I'm approaching Ram Dass level spirituality in such a small period of time that, I mean, it's unbelievable what we have at our fingertips, and getting to sort of explore these things and continue to answer this question of like, how free do I want to be, has been my life since getting sober. I have definitely seen my share of struggles or challenges throughout this. When I was less than a year in, I ended up like getting a girlfriend at one point, and then quickly discovered why they say don't date people in that first year. And then around that time, my dad had gone through a surprise triple bypass surgery that, when you start to hear that, it's like, oh God. And then like, there were things that didn't go quite right in that surgery, and I was actually the one who was there with him the whole time, which was something that wouldn't have come about. It there's been a lot that's happened, but none of it is anything like the life that I experienced prior, because I'm not doing any of it by myself. And I kind of want to keep rambling on, but I kind of don't, because I want to see what you guys are going to say. So,
we love a good ramble.
And Aaron, I love your story. You obviously, and I hear this all the time. It's never linear, right? I mean, it's never just like, today I'm quitting and then I'm not going to do any work, and it doesn't happen that way. Especially with us that have these obsessive personalities, and like when I go all in, I'm all in. One drink is not going to be enough. That's just the way it is. But as you're talking about, that one thing is what clicked for you. You had that one thing in the back of your mind this whole time that you couldn't get out, and once you got it out, boom, there it is. You're doing the inventory every day, which you could, in other programs, it could be journaling, a gratitude list. There's so many different things that I love that, they take little pieces of each program, and just kind of throw it together, because whatever works for you is what works. There's not just like one step, right? That's boom, this is going to take care of you. And, you did have that one thing that really opened your eyes to everything. And that's really what got you to where you're at today, which I think is a phenomenal story of, just getting back up and trying again. And yeah, I mean, shit's happened, but here you are today, right? Sharing your story.
And it also too, like, it's that realization you come to where you're like, this is not something you do and then there's an end and you're healed, right? We hear a lot of people like, what's wrong with me? Like, I'm broken. You're not broken. There's nothing wrong with you. You don't need to be fixed. You need to understand how your brain works. You need to understand the pressure that society alone puts on us to consume alcohol, and also give in to the powerlessness of it, while also taking accountability for what you can control. And I think that's where a lot of people, I like that you touched on that. You're like, well, I mean, if I'm powerless to this, and I can only get better when I'm not in control, then that means I just sit and do nothing. No, it's about understanding that you're not broken. You're struggling with something that you do not understand is going on. And I think that's really important. And there is no end. Even though there are 12 steps, those 12 steps are actually to teach you that the steps are endless. These are just, you know what I mean? Like, these are just the foundational 12 steps. And when you're done with that, the whole point is for you to keep going. Stepping, and that's where a lot of people will even complete 12 steps and then go back to drinking, because they're like, okay, well, I did it. Where's my diploma? Where's my diploma?
Graduated.
And it's like, no, you got to keep going. You got to keep going.
Yeah, I am a big proponent of letting, especially the guys I sponsor, know, like, look, 1 through 9 is your buy-in to living in 10, 11, 12. Okay. Like, that's the thing. And if you're not earnestly seeking something out of it, you might die, but no biggie. I love what you said though about understanding it's a disease, because us like addicts, alcoholics, we don't like being told we're powerless over something,
right?
And the thing is if we're told we have cancer, a lot of us are like, okay, yeah, I can see I'm powerless over that. I'm gonna go do what I need to. But that's so helpful for people though, to realize like, yeah, dude, it's a disease. Like you were born with it.
The scariest thing is we still don't know a lot about what causes someone to be an addict as opposed to someone else. And we know that there are things that contribute. We know that there are things that can exacerbate the disease, but we really have what causes this person to have addictive behavior and this person not? We don't know. Mm-hmm. What we know is in those people who suffer with that disease, once that switch is flipped, it can never be flipped back off again. Uh-huh. You can get sober, you can heal, you can do the work, but the reason that the work is forever is because there is no switching it back off. And that's a huge, huge thing too. And something else that I've seen that I like that you mentioned, and I'll elaborate on, is you can be sober, meaning that you're not drinking, you're not using, by all accounts, you're doing fine. But then there is living a sober and accountable life.
Yes.
And those two things are completely different. Like you touched on, like, I wasn't drinking, everything seemed like it was fine, but you're not living an accountable life where you are really working those steps. And that is something really important too, because it kind of goes back into that. Well, I quit drinking. Well, drinking wasn't really the problem. It's a symptom of the disease. Yes. It's a symptom of the behavior. So, it's just like you said, if you have cancer, you can go through chemo, you can go through radiation, you can go through surgery, but for the rest of your life, it's going to be part of your medical history. Your doctor is going to be, you're always going to have to have certain testing done, and you're going to have to see certain specialists just to make sure that cancer doesn't come back. It really honestly is the same thing. And we don't make people feel bad for losing their hair or not being able to work because they have cancer and they're undergoing treatment. And addiction, mental health, all of that should be treated the exact same way.
Yep.
Well, and I am a big proponent of the spiritual approach personally. And I know it's not for everybody, but I am. And this context, you were just hitting on it. So if I get cancer, my best hope is that I get back to where I was before I had cancer, right? That I come back and I just get back to addiction and alcoholism. This is the only disease where the treatment requires you to get happier.
It's a complete overhaul of your life.
Right. If you get better, if you actually take it on with a seriousness, you will get to know a life that you didn't even think was possible.
That's right.
I mean, it is so unbelievably ironic, and I would assert even unfair to some. To answer your question, I do know actually what that thing is that makes us alcoholic. All right, Jess, you ready for this?
Oh, gosh.
We are actually God's favorites, right? Which is why he gifted us with something that requires us to stay so close. And that's
that
how
gift should have come with a certified personal note, though, to let us know that.
Yeah, and in this case, God is slightly codependent, and I told that to one of my guys a few months ago, and he's like, "Whoa, really?" And I'm like, "Yeah, we're gonna go with that."
Yeah, that's right.
Well,
you took it seriously, so yes.
Well, and to bring the science back into that, though, there is an argument that people who struggle with mental illness and addiction have an enlightened state of mind, which is why, because, my best friend, she's been sober forever, but she always says, I have no emotion, right? I haven't cried in forever, all this. And it's not really that she doesn't have feeling or emotion. It's that she feels everything, and it's because you interpret everything and you feel this need. You're like, I really need to turn the volume down. It's too much coming at me at once. And it's an overstimulation. And for the spiritual aspect of it, even people who don't necessarily believe in God or spirituality, you cannot ignore the fact that there is something that's untangible that happens when you give into that process. You know, like when you start truly becoming sober, and I really, it's not even just about addiction. It's all an umbrella of mental health, right? When you really start buying into that, good things kind of happen. And yeah, it's because you're doing better things, but it's, you know, well, I started taking these steps and I started doing these things. And then all of a sudden, like, I met this person and this job opportunity or this wonderful thing happened. And there is an unspoken, like I said, untangible. And when I say tangible, I mean something you can literally see and feel that happens. And, you know, that's kind of comforting. I do believe that you do get back what you put out. And you also allow yourself the opportunity to not really feel failure, because now when something doesn't go as expected, it's not that you're like superhuman and you're like, I don't get upset at anything. That's not it. But you also understand, okay, this didn't work out. There's a reason this didn't work out.
Right. That's not it. It's not everything.
There's a reason. Either something better and more fit for me is on the other side, or I'm avoiding something that wasn't meant to be anyways. And a lot of it is honestly going with that gut intention. Eventually you're like, oh, when I don't partake in things, not just addictive things that make me feel icky, it usually works out well. And when I give into something, it usually works out well. And it's really cool when you can start that process of like just trusting your own intuition. Because when you are struggling, you don't trust anything your brain tells you. Are you kidding?
No, and that trust thing is so, I mean, that's it. Like, that's the rest of the work. At least from where I'm sitting now, you know, so much of I've gotten deep into Al-Anon now, right? And ultimately that sense of security alleviates everything. Right. So the more and more I can start to trust that, okay, so the job didn't come through or the event I planned tanked, right? I'm okay though. And the more and more I do this work, the more and more that sense of that baseline okayness just continues to elevate a little bit further, because, you know, it's like that addiction counselor said some of the most brilliant stuff that still hits me today. But she's like, you know, when we are actively drinking and using all the time, we start to get tunnel vision, right? And everything gets so crunched into this space, and it's all you can see, that by the end of it, it's like you got blinders on. You know, at the time I'm thinking, okay, yeah, it's like I got blinders on and all I can see is like alleviating this thing. But it turns out it's our purview of life, right? Like all I see is like, am I going to be okay because of this external thing that I need to have happen, right? And if it's not, then I'm not going to be able to live with it, right? And the more and more we get into the work, the more and more we start to learn that placing that okayness on things outside of us is actually the reason that we don't feel good, and we start to gain more ways to keep that within, right? And the more and more we start to do that, the more and more that purview just starts to expand outward and outward and outward, to the point where, like, yeah, you can have, you know, a best friend die, and then it's still not everything. You end up at a point where you're like, instead of everything's fucked, I'm out, right? Instead of coming from that place, it's, how can I help this dude's family? How can I create something with my friends to celebrate this? You know, it is so drastic how different things become, that it's not it's not the same life.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's also, you realize how strong and capable and present you are. You even start, I mean, and I've said this on previous podcasts, but when my mother passed away, my brother was an addict for 20 years, and he's been sober for almost 6 years now. So he's doing great.
Oh, nice.
But he was like, you know, he did everything. And when our mom passed away, you know, he's like we're sitting in my bed and we're just crying and just existing together. And he grabbed my hand and he looked at me and he said, I do not want to drink. I do not want to use. He's like, this is the worst pain I've ever felt in my life. And I feel terrible, but I want to feel every single bit of it. I want to be present in this grief and in this pain. I don't want to use. And it was so powerful because it's not like he was saying that just to be like, don't worry about me. I'm not going to go drink today. He meant it. He was like, this is horrible. And I want to sit in this because I can. And because it's important for me to be fully aware of what's happening. And you're so right, because even though you're devastated, on the other side that the only thing that we all have in common is we're all going to go through trauma and bad shit's going to happen. And it is complete. And, sometimes it happens sooner in people's lives, later. Sometimes it hits more home, but it's inevitable. You're going to lose someone you love. Something bad's going to happen. So numbing out, it doesn't prevent anything and it doesn't treat anything. It just prevents you from moving on and really becoming really just grabbing a hold of life and really realizing how precious it is, and that you don't want to numb out. You want to be there for everything, even the bad stuff, right? Like, you numbed out for so long. You're like, no, I want to be present. I want to feel this. For so long, I didn't feel anything. I want to feel all of it. And that's that, level of enlightenment that you realize, like, wow, what can I do? Now what is next? And it's tragically exciting, if that makes any sense.
Oh, yeah. Well, especially because, I mean, the thing that blew my mind the most was I started getting into, so I practice breath work. I'm also a facilitator instructor, right? And that started opening the door for me to like trauma work. I don't know about you guys, but we are real resistant. At least a lot of the alcoholics I know are real resistant to saying they have any sort of trauma. Right now, like I just told you guys about like a car accident and like near-death experience, jumping off cliffs. I was like, I don't think I have like real trauma though, right? That started opening the door to that stuff, and then in getting into other modalities like IFS, you start to discover like, oh, experiencing this thing that I blunted so long ago. If I go experience that, then I actually feel amazing afterwards, because it's like there's whatever level of pain that I am capable of fully experiencing, of impact, of whatever it might be, emotion. It allows me to experience that in the other direction, right? But anything that I say no to, as far as the negative, or no, I'm not going to go there, that will keep me from getting above a certain place in how serene, peaceful, happy, joyous, free I can feel. It is the guardrails to my experience, is that willingness to experience life. And that's such a big thing when you start to get it. So like, hats off to your brother for that, because that's one of those things that like, now he's not going to have to go back. Like, I think everybody kind of stumbles upon this at some point, but now he's not going to have to go back and figure out some modality of re-experiencing this thing so that he can get back to feeling at peace and at home in himself.
Yeah, absolutely. When he and my brother both got sober, it prompted me to quit drinking, because I was like, I have missed out on so many moments, so many hugs, so many opportunities. I don't want to be clouded. I don't want to miss any of them. I want to be present for all of them. So yeah, I'm a big fan. They're okay. They're good guys. Let's stick around.
We're all right.
They seem pretty cool.
They seem pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so
cool,
you talked about the future a little bit, Aaron. And you and I have talked about the breath work and stuff. What does the future hold for you? What's the future look like going forward now?
Well, so part of it is, Poppy, come here. Part of it is this little girl. Come here, bro.
Oh my God, I'm so excited.
She has been munching on.
Oh my God.
We've got these like Kong toys. So I don't know if you like can tell how big this thing is. So this is 4.5 months.
Yeah.
She's a Doberman, half dinosaur.
Yeah.
Or at least think she's a
Velociraptor. So beautiful. I love it.
Thank you. Hi, girl.
I'm the one who stops people, and he and my daughter will like roll their eyes, and I'm like, "Can I pet your dog, please?"
Yeah, I like that about you, because I will do the same thing depending on the day. so that's been a big part of it. We've had her for like a month. You know, one of the joys of sobriety for me has been finding the partner that I did. Yeah, so you mentioned like random good things happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'll throw a big one out there. Like when you get sober, I didn't go to jail. I don't know if you guys know this, but that, like, if I had gone to jail for 15 years, I would still be there. You know, that's a big thing that didn't happen. But the stuff, it keeps on going when you do the work,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you know, there was a point where I had can you guys still hear me?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay, cool. One of my headphones went more quiet than the other. So there was a point where, you know, after that first year, I had found myself in a relationship that I was like, what am I doing? Right. I'm gonna get to the bottom of this thing, and I'm not gonna date until then. So I'd actually waited to seriously date for like a couple of years, until ready, and I ended up meeting this girl almost a year ago now, who I'd like known of. We were around each other for 15 years. I mean, she was at my first show as a DJ. She'd been to one of my events for me and Samantha's company, right? We had never had a conversation like the entire time. Knew her name, she knew mine, like in the same circle of people. So we started dating coming up on 11 months ago. You know, so that's been a huge thing, is like, you know, we live together now and we've got a place together and this dog together. Business wise, I am still doing breath work. I do, you know, one-on-one sessions with people for anything from like athletic performance and expanding physical capability to, I've actually started working with a lot of like 60, 70 plus. I've got a whole track for different ways to modify breathing to impact things like oxidative stress, arthritis problems, sleep patterns, things like that. Still doing group sessions. I've got a group of friends who we're working on an online platform right now called SAS. It's a spiritual athletic society. It's integrative tools for athletes and former athletes to use what they've learned in sport to bring themselves into life fully. You know, my buddy Max was a goalie, you know, was a goalie in soccer, was looking at professional prospects, ends up getting hurt, has an identity crisis. You know, once me and him got to know each other a little bit, I'm like, hey man, I've had one of those. So the two of us, along with two more of our friends, have been putting together this online platform on School, with a bunch of integrative tools. I still coach CrossFit and High Rocks, so those races, competition soon coming up. There's all sorts of things.
Awesome. That's awesome.
That's awesome, man. Okay,
so
plate.
I know, right? Okay.
Packed into the stream of life.
That's right.
And you know what our final question is, but we're going to say, before you became a sober badass, okay?
Mm-hmm.
We got to have a story.
Mm-hmm.
We got to have a funny, drunken story, because everybody has one that they look back on, and it might be embarrassing and it might be horrible, but you're like, God damn, that was funny.
All right. So this is the one that keeps popping into my mind. It's kind of dark.
Okay.
But I mentioned all right. So that cliff jumping, the jumping off rocks into water where I hit my head, right? All right. So this is in 2017, and my name is Aaron, and there was a really popular sketch in 2017 from Key and Peele that might have mentioned the name Aaron, that Aaron sketch, if you remember. And around 2017, I was so sick of hearing Aaron that it was beginning to drive me absolutely fucking crazy, because it was everywhere, right? And I loved Key and Peele, which made it worse. So this, you know, in this accident, I'm heading towards this rock, and the last thing I think is like, shit, this is how I'm going out, man. This is like, bummer. Like, this is anticlimactic. Not like, oh no, I'm gonna die. Like, this is lame, right? And I'd also been watching a lot of Game of Thrones at the time, and I come to for a split second, and I'm like face down in the water, and all I see is red, and I'm like, whoa, I got a chance. And like, for some reason, Game of Thrones is popping in my head. I go back out. I come to again, and I'm in a helicopter. Now, you don't know what the inside of a helicopter looks like if you haven't been in one, especially, like a medevac. And I was still pretty sure. I was like, man, but I think I probably died. And I wake up in this helicopter, and I'm like, fuck, I'm in purgatory. Because it's red. I'm not dead, but I still seem like pretty human. And then the next thing I hear is one of the EMTs charting going, hey, what's this guy's name again? And the guy's like, Aaron Meade. And he's like, Aaron, like Aaron? He goes, yeah. I was like, no! And I'm like, fuck, I am in purgatory. And then I pass out again. It was too overwhelming. I pass back out. I wake up in the hospital, having my forehead stitched up, which, by the way, is super uncomfortable. And I open my eyes, and the first thing I hear is, good morning, dumbass. And from the person stitching my forehead up. I'm like, no! Jesus. I'm not going to say which hospital this happened at. I'm like, oh, shit! I'm still in purgatory! And I look up, and I'm like, wait, I know this person. And I say her name, and she's like, uh-huh. And I was like, whoa, you graduated. She goes, yeah, you haven't changed much, have you? And I'm like, oh, pass out again. Before passing out, I'm like, I am definitely in purgatory. I wake up again as I'm being rolled to my room, or my suite that I get to stay in for the next few days. And I hear now, mind you, I knew two people that worked at hospitals at this point, and they were both two of my buddies that I'd been snowboarding with the previous season. Right? That's it. I didn't know anybody else that worked at a hospital. And I'm being rolled to my room, and I hear somebody yell, Meade! From down the hall. Right? And I'm like, no! Because that's like, I hear it, and I'm like, that's one of my homies. Right? And I find out in the next few seconds that my buddy is my attending nurse for the next 12 hours. He just started a shift. And I'm like, this is terrible. I passed back out. I finally woke up and realized I was not in purgatory when, well, my mom convinced me. And then there was other people around like, no, man, here's what happened. And yeah, he is here. He'll be back in a minute with your meds. But yeah, so there was a good like day or so where just these crazy coincidences kept happening, and I'm like, I'm dead. This is impossible. This is impossible. Like, I have to be dead. This is all. Yeah, so that was the one that kept coming to mind.
I love dark humor. Are you kidding? That's great.
I'm glad you guys laughed at that.
I love how you're caught, like you wake up and you're like, no, and then you just pass out.
It was like 3 or 4 times. Like by the third one, I'm like, yeah, I'm in limbo.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, we're glad that you did not die.
Yes.
Me too.
That is good news.
Yeah. And here to tell your story for sure. Aaron, thank you so much
for a story, man.
Joining us and telling your story. It's wild. Absolutely wild. Are you still DJing, by the way?
No, I try to stay out of the clubs, but
no worries.
I still get to mix and produce music for breathwork sessions. Everything I do in there is music driven, so it's satiating that for sure.
That's badass. Awesome. Good way to pay it forward. That's cool.
Oh yeah. And also thank you guys for having me on and for doing this in general. I mean, share the message and having some fun with it. I can't think of anything better to do with my time. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. Well, we wouldn't be here without our great guests. So thank you for sharing your story. That was amazing.
Thank you.
We'll talk to you soon.
See ya.
If you love the podcast, which I know you do, please like, subscribe,
and hit that notification bell to get notified every time we post.
That's right. Dropping them, baby. Word.